Hey, what's going on everyone? My name's Alex and today we're going to be learning how to set up our pumps. We're going to go through the whole process of connecting the fittings to our pumps, connecting the tubing to our bottle, connecting the tubing into the manifold, and also going through the process of naming the pumps, priming the pumps, and calibrating the pumps. So the first things we're going to need are our little tube inserts right here and these tube couplings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the inserts and I'm going to slide them right into the pump tubes on either side. One into this side and then one into the other side. Alright, so now I'm going to slide the coupling onto the tube, and we want to make sure that the insert doesn't slide in at all. So we're going to just pinch this a little bit, and then I'm going to slide this directly into the insert until it goes all the way in. Now I'm going to do that for the other side. Yeah, so getting this right is super important because sometimes you'll realize, oh, the pump's not working, and there could be a tiny air leak here. So if you ever have any issues, you might want to make sure that these are fully connected. So now that we got these connected, the next step is to connect our tubing. So I've got the tubing right here that's included with your kit. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to take one end of the tubing, we're going to slide it right into the coupling like so, make sure you get it all the way to the end. And then we're going to go down and connect it to our bottle. Now, if you haven't set up your bottle cap kit already, make sure you watch the previous video where we go through the entire process of building one of these. All right, so you want to get a nice length for this tubing. You don't want it to be too short, obviously. You also don't want it to be too long, but it's better to go a little bit long, and then you can always cut a little bit off if you need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to go down here. Like here's where I'm going to be connecting it, so I might just cut down by here so there'll be a little bit of slack. And I might want to make sure to cut it straight across, like that. Alright, so now I've got the tube, it's nice and straight. I'm going to go ahead and slide it right into the bottle cap kit, just like that. Alright, so now we've gotten this connected, we're going to now connect this end of the tubing into the manifold. So once again, we're going to slide our tube right into the coupling. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have to cut this. So what I actually recommend is kind of where the manifold reaches this bulkhead, you're going to go ahead and cut just like so, straight across. And then you're going to slide it right into the fitting. Alright, so once again, you want to make sure that this isn't too long, because if it's too long, then you're going to get a little bit of crimping right here. But also if it's too short, it's going to be pulling the Elixir down. So if you cut it right about there, you're going to get the perfect length almost every time. So now it looks like we've got our pump all set up. So let's head into the software and go through the next steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the menu button right there. Then I'm going to go into pumps. And you see how we have all of our other pumps named, but pump 3 has not been named yet. So I'm going to click on pump 3. I'm going to go to change name, and we're going to name it A, because this is our A part nutrient. Okay, so now we're going to start priming our pump so it has a full supply of nutrients ready to go. So before we do that, we actually have to take this back out of the manifold. So in order to do that, because these are push fit connects, I'm going to make sure I'm pulling down on the ring of the fitting, and then I'm going to pull up. Sometimes you can give it a little bit of wiggle, and then it should come right out. What we have to do now is we actually have to prime the pump, and the reason we have to do that is because right now there's nothing in the line. So if the pump turns on to dose, nothing's going to come out, so it's not going to be dosing what you expect it to be dosing. Now we're ready to prime our pump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this beaker right here, and then I'm just going to hit that prime button. So this is going to be on until I click stop, so make sure you're ready to stop it once you start seeing the nutrients come out. Alright, that's perfect. So our pump is nice and primed. If you're having any issues with priming it, then you're going to want to make sure that all the fittings are fully connected. So you want to check everything right here. You want to check it right over here. You want to make sure that this is connected right to the bottle. And also you can always go ahead and twist the top, and you can see that this line is primed with nutrients. So if this line is not primed or there's a lot of air bubbles, then that means that there is a connection that is not fully sealed. So you're going to also want to make sure that there's this hole in the top, because if there's no hole, then the bottle is basically not going to be able to replace the nutrients with air, and so it's not going to dose any nutrients. Also, if you're using pump or bottles that are far away or from a different elevation, then you may have more issues priming than normal. The pumps are tested to prime from over 200 feet and can pull from about 20 feet of elevation, but when you're pulling from a higher elevation, it is going to reduce the flow rate. Additionally, if you're working with nutrients of different viscosities, it's also going to affect the speed at which it pumps and which it primes. So make sure you're taking all those variables into account when priming your pumps. Now we've got everything set up, our pump is primed. The next and almost final step is the calibration process. This is actually one of the most important procedures that you're going to do when setting up your system, and there's a number of reasons. So these pumps can typically flow from about 150 mils per minute to 200 mils per minute, but that can vary based on a lot of different factors. So for example, if the line that you're pulling from is very long, say it's like 100 or 200 feet, that friction is going to slightly reduce the flow rate if it was instead just right beneath the pump. Another thing is if you're pulling from a higher elevation, say you're pulling from like 20 feet below, that's going to significantly reduce the flow rate. And I actually don't recommend you to be pulling from such a high elevation, like maybe 3 feet to 5 feet would be okay, but it's better to not be pulling from too low. You could also actually have the nutrients up high, and if you had the nutrient bottles up high, like even above the pumps, that's actually going to increase the flow rate, so these pumps can then maybe get up all the way up to 230 mils per minute. So additionally, the viscosity of the solutions has a major impact on the flow rate of the pumps. So if you're using liquid nutrients which are water-based, they're usually going to be pretty similar to the viscosity of water, and so you're going to get the normal flow rate of the pumps. But if you're pumping things like silica or molasses, things that are very viscous, that can actually greatly reduce the flow rate of the pumps. So you could see things as low as 32 mils per minute if you're pumping like a very viscous silica, which is perfectly fine as long as we go through the calibration process and we leave everything where we left it. So, for example, say you had your pump on the floor, or you had your bottle on the floor, and then you calibrated it and then you raised it up. That would actually affect the flow rate of the pump. So you want to make sure if you do move the nutrient bottles, you do have to recalibrate the pumps. So now we're ready to calibrate. You're going to want to use that beaker, which is included in your Alchemist kit. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on Calibrate, and then we're going to put the beaker right beneath the outlet of the pump, and then we're going to hit Next. So this is going to take 1 minute. And I'm sure it's not going to fill up this entire thing, but it might get up to 200 or 230 mils. So we'll just wait a minute for this to finish up. Okay, so now that the calibration is complete, we're going to want to make sure we put it on a completely flat surface. So I'm going to place the graduated cylinder right here. Then I'm going to get to eye level, and I'm going to look at where the liquid is. Now there's something called the meniscus, where basically the sides are going to be higher up, and then the meniscus is actually in the middle. So you want to do is you want to kind of just look at where the liquid looks like it is. In this case, it looks like it's at about 192 mils. And so because it's just right 192 mils, I would actually say it's probably actually at 192. If it was a little bit lower, I'd probably go for 191, but in this case, it looks like about 192. And just so you know when you're reading this graduated cylinder is actually in increments of 2. So if you see it on the top line, that's going to be 192. If you saw it on the bottom line, that's going to be 190. And if it's right in the middle between two lines, it would be about 191. Okay, so now that we have our number 192, we're going to type that into the system so it knows the exact flow rate of this pump. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 192. And then we're going to hit the checkbox to go to the next page. And basically now the pump has been fully calibrated. So we're going to go ahead and click Done. Okay, so this next part involves just a little bit of math, and what we're going to do now is we're going to confirm our calibration because we want to be sure that the pump is as accurate as we think it should be. So we got our number to 192, and so what I like to do is get it to a nice even number. So I'm going to add 18 to 192. I'm just kind of arbitrarily, because I know that if I take 192 and I add 18, that's going to bring it up to 210 milliliters. So I want to see, after doing a dose of 18 milliliters, that this beaker or graduated cylinder reads 210. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into quick dose, and then I'm going to enter 18. And it's going to tell us that it's going to actually do 18 mils of nutrient part A, and it's going to take 5 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and push start. Okay. So what I see is it's right on 210, which is exactly what we were expecting. So now that we're done with the calibration, what we're going to do is actually we're going to dump this back into the bottle, because I don't want you to have to waste all this nutrients just to do a calibration process. But what is important is if you're calibrating all your pumps at the same time, you definitely want to make sure that when you're done, you give this a thorough rinse and dry it off even a little bit before you go ahead and calibrate part B, so that the nutrients don't mix together. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take off the bottle, pour this back in. Okay, so now we're almost done. We're just going to put this right back in. And then you can repeat the process for all the rest of your pumps, but remember to make sure you clean this thoroughly between each calibration. Also, so you don't ever have to calibrate these again as long as you keep the same nutrient bottles in the same position. But if you ever switch to a different nutrient line or you move the bottle somewhere else, make sure that you do run another calibration so that your pumps are as accurate as possible.